Listening Library presents Pete's Dragon by Landry Walker. Read for you by Alan Sklar.
Chapter 1. Dark green trees stretched for miles in front of Pete's family car. They were beautiful towering pines that swayed gently in the breeze. The sun sat low on the horizon, and faint washes of orange and pink peered over the tree line, as if the last touches of daylight wanted to say goodbye. Only the empty road broke the scenic display. It was a narrow two-lane band of asphalt, sandwiched between two massive walls of forest. The sight was both amazing and breathtaking. Not that Pete was paying attention to any of it, not really. In the back seat of his parents' station wagon, the 5-year-old boy focused all of his attention on an oversized storybook, sitting comfortably in his lap. This is the story of... Pete traced the letters with his fingertips. He had just begun learning to read, and it was sometimes hard for him to sound out the words. A little puppy, Pete continued. His name is Pete's mother looked back from the front seat. Elliot, she said encouragingly. Elliot, Pete repeated. He gazed at the sentence with the intense type of focus only a child can have. Suddenly, it all snapped into place. His name is Elliot. Pete's mother smiled. You got it. Pete grinned proudly. He kept reading. He is going on an adventure. This word was new. Pete mouthed the sound silently to himself, but it didn't help. He had no idea what an adventure was. He pointed at the strange word, looking to his mother for help. What's that? An adventure? You don't know what an adventure is? Pete's mother asked. It's what we're on right now, Pete's dad said from the driver's seat. Out here in the wild, not another soul in sight for hundreds of miles, no running water, with only the stars to guide us. Pete frowned. Is it scary? He asked quietly. Well, his father said with a mischievous smile, that's the other thing about adventures. You've got to be brave. Are you brave? Pete paused. He hadn't ever thought about whether or not he was brave. His mother jumped in. Of course you're brave, she said, giving Pete a loving smile. You're the bravest boy I've ever met. The last light of the sun had faded by then. The blue sky deepened quickly into indigo, and every trace of warmth faded behind the tops of the towering forest. Pete's father reached for the radio, turning the knobs and searching for some music. It's getting dark, Pete's mom said. Let's finish reading later. Pete closed the storybook and slid it into his backpack, but he couldn't get the zipper to close. He tugged at it. The stubborn zipper still refused to budge. Pete's mother reached for the backpack. Here, let me help you with that. As Pete's mother worked at the troublesome zipper, a glimmer of light caught the young boy's attention. A star, he exclaimed, pointing up at the sky through the car window. His mother looked up. That's the North Star. It's there to guide your way. Pete cocked his head to the side, thinking aloud. On an adventure? Exactly, she replied. Pete grinned and stared up at the star. Maybe his mom was right. Maybe the star was guiding them on an adventure right now. What happened next, Pete would never clearly recall. A deer suddenly bounded into the road, and his father slammed on the brakes. The car's tires screeched as they skidded across the road, and the vehicle spun out of control. Suddenly, the world tipped, and all Pete could see was a blur of dirt and branches and tree trunks. He slammed into the side of the car and banged his head hard. Then everything went dark. Chapter 2. The deer dashed quickly away, disappearing into the night. The road through the forest was empty once more. A trail of wreckage lay scattered across the damp grass, leading to where the family's station wagon had crashed into a tree trunk. Not far away, barely visible in the darkness, lay the oversized storybook. The wind picked up, and the pages began to turn. Pete's backpack sat nearby, still unzipped. Suddenly, somewhere in the darkness, Pete coughed. He stumbled to his feet, looking back in confusion at the accident. "Mama?" he called weakly. There was no response. Pete's vision swam. It felt as if he had just stepped out of a dream, everything blurred. He looked down and saw the storybook at his feet. Uncertain, Pete leaned down to pick up the book. He clutched it to his chest with one hand, picking up his backpack with the other. Pete waited alone in the dark for a long time. Finally, not knowing what else to do, the young boy sat down and started to put the book back into his backpack, pulling at the zipper. It still wouldn't close. Tears began to trickle down Pete's cheeks. He knew something bad had happened, and he felt scared and alone. Suddenly, a loud howl echoed through the forest. Pete jumped and clutched the storybook even more tightly. He peered into the trees, toward where the sound had come from. A pair of gleaming eyes peered back at him. Then another pair, and another. By the light of the stars, Pete could make out the shapes of the creatures that were staring at him. Wolves. Heavy growls escaped from behind their bared fangs. Pete turned and blindly ran away from the wild animals. As he crashed through the trees, the forest grew thicker. A wolf howled. It sounded close, but when Pete looked back, all he could see were trees. Then came another howl, this time from somewhere up ahead. Pete whipped to face forward too late, and he stumbled over a branch, dropping his book as he crashed headlong into the uneven ground. Sore and bruised, Pete got to his feet. The wolves were surrounding him, forming a tight circle. Pete's heart pounded so loudly he was sure the wolves could hear it. There was nowhere to run, no one to run to. Boom! Suddenly, a deep sound resonated throughout the forest like thunder. The trees shook. Boom! And again, the wolves hesitated. They sniffed the air, growling at the sky. Boom! Even louder. Pete looked around. He had no idea what was happening. A heavy wind pushed the tree branches back and forth. The cold Pacific air felt electric. Boom! The wolves had had enough. They yelped in fright and scampered away. The treetops were moving more violently now, swaying and shaking as if something large, something huge was approaching. Pete knew he should run, but his feet wouldn't move. He could barely breathe. Brave, the boy thought. I have to be brave. The trees swayed open like a gate, and a monstrous figure stepped out from among the towering pines. It was bigger than any animal Pete had ever seen, bigger than anything Pete had ever imagined. The ground shook with each step of the tremendous beast.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?